Good day, everyone. I am Jelen in Turano, and my presentation is entitled Addressing Plastic Pollution the ASEAN Way, Challenges and Opportunities. So why do we need to tackle plastics and plastic pollution? So first, let us define plastic. So plastic or plastics have a low cost of production, are lightweight in nature, and they have the capacity to withstand contamination, hence making them indispensable in industrial manufacturing and distribution. While plastic itself is not a problem, the overconsumption and poor management of the material throughout its life cycle have resulted in an estimated 12 billion tons of plastic trash in landfills and the environment. So this is according to Jambeck et al. In their 2015 study. So plastics can be found in everything from single-use plastic bags, food wraps and bottles to fishing lines, construction materials, and synthetic fibers used in the apparel and fishing industries. Therefore, plastic pollution is as pervasive as the use of plastic itself. An estimated 10 million tons of plastic in all shapes and forms leak into the ocean each year, and most plastic items never completely vanish. Instead, they shrink in size. Many of these microscopic plastic particles are eaten by farm animals or fish who mistake them for food, and therefore they end up on our plates. They have also been discovered in most of the world's drinking water. Hence, the plastic crisis is connected not only to littering and waste management, but also to human health and the loss of biodiversity. Furthermore, plastic production and leakage are highly interconnected with climate change. Current waste management practices contribute to 5% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And these GHG emissions result from a combination of inadequate waste collection, uncontrolled dumping and burning of waste, which are the same activities behind plastic leakage. So for this presentation, my objectives are the following. Determine the policies or programs initiated by the ASEAN and its member states towards addressing plastic pollution. Identify challenges and opportunities faced by the ASEAN and its member states in addressing plastic pollution, and provide an analysis of the ASEAN Way and how the measures and commitments already initiated or will be implemented be further strengthened in order to mitigate plastic pollution in the region. So let's take a look of the plastic pollution in Southeast Asia. So in Southeast Asia, 6 countries are included in the top 20 countries with mismanaged plastic trash based on the study of Chambeck et al. In 2015. So the Southeast Asian countries include Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, Myanmar, and Cambodia. So their aggregate marine plastic pollution totaled 1.4 to 3.54 million metric tons per year out of an annual global total of 8 to 12 million metric tons. And China ranked first with the total plastic waste pollution reaching 1.32 to 1.54 million metric tons per year. Also, in the Ocean Conservancy International Coastal Cleanup 2018 report, as cited by the Climate Change Commission, the top 10 litter found in coastal cleanups are mostly single-use plastics. So you can see this at the left side of the screen. So furthermore, in the analysis conducted by the Ocean Conservancy and McKinsey Center for Business and Environment in 2019, they found that ocean-based plastic debris sources such as fisheries and fishing vessels account for less than 20% of leakage. This means that over 80% of ocean plastic debris come from land-based sources, and their analysis was based on 5 countries, namely China, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. And they discovered that 75% of the leakage from land-based sources comes from uncollected garbage, with the remaining 25% coming from within the waste management system itself. Therefore, improper dumping, as well as formal and informal disposal sites that are poorly placed or which lacked sufficient controls, are causes of post-collection leakage. So what are the policies or programs initiated by the ASEAN and its member states towards addressing plastic pollution? First, let's take a look of the international commitments to which the ASEAN member states are signatory or a party to. So first, we have the Basel Convention on the Control of Transboundary Movements of Hazardous Wastes and Their Disposal, or simply the Basel Convention, which was adopted in March 1989 and entered into force on May 1992. The overarching objective of the Basel Convention is to protect human health and the environment against the adverse effects of hazardous wastes. Parties to the convention must also ensure that transboundary movements of waste are reduced to the minimum, consistent with environmentally sound and efficient management policies and regulations. And then this Basel Convention was amended in 1995, but only last January 2021 that it was entered into force. So the amendment of the Basel Convention empowers countries to stop the import of plastic waste wherein only certain single and mixed plastic types that are sorted, cleaned, and uncontaminated and effectively destined for recycling can be freely traded globally. Thirdly is the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, or POPs. So Stockholm Convention details the measures to reduce or eliminate releases from stockpiles of listed chemicals or wastes contaminated with these chemicals. Under Article 6 of the convention, parties commit to take measures to ensure that these products and wastes are not disposed of in such a way that may lead to the recovery, recycling, or reclamation, direct reuse, or alternative uses of persistent organic pollutants. And then we have the ASEAN Declarations and Action Plan. So in 2017, the member states adopted the ASEAN Joint Declaration on Hazardous Chemicals and Wastes Management. So this declaration called upon the ASEAN member states to strengthen their cooperation and coordination towards the establishment of environmentally sound systems for the management of hazardous chemicals and wastes, including through measures in waste prevention, reduction, reuse, recycling, and recovery. And then realizing the urgency of dealing with marine debris and their central role in protecting the world's oceans, the ASEAN member countries adopted the Bangkok Declaration on Combating Marine Debris in the ASEAN region in 2019. So the declaration focuses on strengthening local laws and cooperation to combat marine debris. So it adopts a land-to-sea approach and recognizes the importance of multi-sectoral coordination, especially the engagement of private sector and investment in preventing the problem of marine debris. So the framework has several important features. First, it recognizes debris produced from both sea and land-based activities, with the latter being particularly important since land-based sources such as industrial outflows and improper waste disposals are the biggest contributors to maritime pollution. So as mentioned also in the earlier slide. So the framework plan also incorporates the possibility of establishing an ASEAN Center on combating marine debris. And the center would act as a source of information for ASEAN member states, promoting cooperation and coordination between them. So after the Bangkok Declaration on Combating Marine Debris, a regional action plan for combating marine debris was also adopted. Now let's take a look of the national policies and strategies for plastic or in addressing plastic pollution. So you can see in the slide the first five ASEAN countries. We have Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, PDR, and Malaysia. And at the left most column are the plastic policies and strategies. So we have plastic-specific strategy. We have ban on single-use plastics, levy or charges on SUPs, deposit refund scheme, the EPR-based recycling policies. So EPR, or the Extended Producer's Responsibility, is defined as a system that imposes a certain quota for the recycling of wastes from products or packaging materials on the manufacturer of the products or the manufacturer of products that use the packaging materials. So this shifts the responsibility from local governments to the plastic manufacturers and businesses in the collection, recovery, and recycling. Then we also have sorted collection, voluntary scheme or pilot projects, and import regulation. So from this table, you can see that Indonesia has or implemented these plastic policies and strategies, while some are still on the development stage, or some do not have yet such policies and measures. So this slide presents the next five, or the remaining ASEAN member state countries: Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. So for the Philippines, so let's focus on the Philippines. So for the Philippines, we do not have yet any plastic specific strategy. It is still under development. Then we have ban on single-use plastic bags, but this is just partially implemented and mostly initiated by municipalities and city governments themselves. We do not have yet levy or charge on SUPs, nor deposit refund schemes. And then currently there is a proposal under discussion in Congress for the EPR-based recycling facilities or policies. And then we have sorting collection as part of the Solid Waste Management Act, or the RA 9003. Then we also have, as mentioned, local bans on plastic use. And then we do not have yet any regulation on imports of plastics. So what are the challenges and opportunities for the ASEAN and its member states in addressing plastic pollution? So some of the identified challenges are the following. First, we have lack of comprehensive frameworks with policy packages and instruments to follow up national strategies and plans. So according to Akenji et al. In 2019, the predominant narrative to governance of plastics in the ASEAN is in terms of waste management, and therefore is commonly framed as an end of pipe issue. So this has in many countries resulted in a suite of national waste management strategies. However, most of these plans and strategies, although they are well crafted and full of worthy ideas and ambitious objectives, they have not been implemented as intended. So national governments must provide a conducive atmosphere for conversation among all parties and stakeholders, and give or encourage the creation of realistic tools and facilitate a decisive move away from plastics to ensure effective governance from societal and environmental issues relating to plastics. There is also limited implementation of comprehensive policies to support waste and plastic waste cost recovery mechanisms in the ASEAN. So cost recovery mechanisms are essential to ensure basic waste management services such as waste collection and recycling and economically feasible. So at present, there are not enough investments for the management of plastic waste during the whole life cycle of plastic containing products. Thirdly, many ASEAN countries, as in other countries throughout the world, have a variety of misconceptions about plastics and the issues they cause, as well as lack of knowledge about their benefits and good features. Hence, there is limited data on current use of patterns and trends, as well as on waste handling and recycling routes. Then we also have difficulty in addressing single-use plastics in the region, owing to the complexity of the issue of single-use plastics. Which type of plastics should be totally banned or phased out, and those concerns. Then we also have lack of market-wide standardization or classification. Um, Classification vary from producer to producer or application to application in various ASEAN member countries. Then lastly, we have poor access to financing for eco solutions, including R&D and commercialization of alternatives to plastics and efficient post-use processing. So in terms of for example, in terms of quality recycling, waste separation, collection, and processing plastic waste, as well as for the development of sustainable alternatives to problematic types of plastics and designs. So most ASEAN member countries do not have yet that investment opportunities and financing opportunities available. So what are the opportunities for the ASEAN member states and the ASEAN? So there is seen increased visibility and publicity on the harmful effects or impacts of mismanaged plastic waste. And these have triggered social awareness and public pressure, not only to the government, but the business sector as well. Then there is also an increase in civil society initiatives and movements tackling plastic pollution. And then there is an emergence of local businesses promoting sustainability and voluntary actions by groups or communities to address plastic pollution. So ASEAN member states, especially the governments, should um, grab these opportunities in order to mainstream national action plans relating to mitigating plastic pollution. And of course, raising awareness, not only among business sector, but until or up to the household and individual level, especially the youth. So what is the impact of the COVID-19? So single-use plastics use sees exponential increase from PPE and takeout. So COVID-19 triggered an estimated global use of 129 billion face masks and 65 billion gloves every month. Then people turned to online shopping and food takeout or delivery, which increased the demand for plastic packaging. Then we have oil prices, which went down and led to plastics being cheaper to produce. And lastly, due to restrictions, many waste management services and those innovative recycling companies or small businesses have not been able to operate in full capacity, thus reducing their services on waste management and recycling. So the plastic pollution, for my analysis, first, the plastic pollution problem advances opportunities to employ mechanisms, including the provision of incentives, penalties, and levies, and other market and non-market based approaches. And then some of the identified areas for strengthening by the ASEAN and its member states are the policy, governance, and institutional arrangements, information and knowledge, capacity building, and of course, financing. Then thirdly, public procurement can play a key role in transitioning to a circular economy. Hence, including circular principles into procurement practices can help the public sector buyers take a more holistic approach to sustainability from the first stages of a procurement to the end of a product life, while also achieving potential savings. Then we need an effective monitoring and evaluation system. For instance, plastic audits, which shall include brand audits and more disaggregation in data for plastics, should be in place at the local level. Brand audits will be helpful in tracking stakeholders or companies and address the plastic production and distribution aspect. And lastly, for my analysis, given the complexity, urgency, and transboundary nature of the plastic pollution problem in the region, the ASEAN should look into developing legally binding agreements and deviate from its non-interference principle. So this would help the region to have a more holistic approach in mitigating the plastic pollution problem. To conclude, so plastic is so intricately intertwined with economic growth due to its close relationship with consumerism and the domestic multinational corporations, including the oil sector. Hence, tackling the plastic issue at its roots is highly complex and would be faced with influential lobbying groups. There is a need to look at the issue as a system to see how the relationship between stakeholders, businesses, governments, and society could create an enabling environment for change. Then, in the context of climate change, the plastic pollution problem is framed under overarching principles of circular economy and sustainable consumption and production. And climate change mitigation, as plastics production, is backed by the oil industry, which is a major contributor to global greenhouse gas emissions. Hence, plastic pollution needs to be approached with a holistic review of the value chain, which requires a systemic package and chain of solutions. And for an effective and lasting transformation, a change in consumption patterns is crucial. So behavioral change, which includes the business sector down to the individual level, is very important. Lastly, there are numerous opportunities along the value chain as ASEAN and its member states shift towards a more sustainable strategies in dealing with plastic pollution. However, there is a need for strong leadership and cooperation among members and availability of resources from technical to financing towards effective implementation of policies and measures in addressing plastic pollution in the region. So that ends my presentation. Thank you, everyone, and good day.